I've got a story for you today, and it was a great reminder for me, something that happened about pricing and lawn care. This reaffirmed what I already believe, but maybe you need to be reminded just like me. Today's video is sponsored by Yardbook. If you need a lawn care software, then I would encourage you to check out Yardbook. Go to yardbook.com. I think there's a little bit of a myth out there that thinks that when you start off in the business, then you might be a little bit worried about price, and maybe I need to charge a low price just to break into the industry, and that's something you got to fight against. But I think the myth is that it doesn't affect some people that's been doing lawn care for a long time. I still can struggle with that because I think it's just a little bit of the competitive nature, like you want to get that customer. I don't want to lose the customer. And so I'm thinking if that's the one thing that can put me over the top is the price, then I might need to cave in a little bit on my price. Well, I had to fight against that, and today was a great example why. So here's what happened. It's a Saturday morning and the weather's near perfect, and I think I'm gonna go out there and take care of a couple of these commercial properties I like to do on Saturday because there's usually nobody there, which is a great thing. I figure whatever I get done on Saturday, that'll just make my life easier during the week when I've got a lot of yards to do. So a lot of you know I do weed control and fertilization. So basically I'm riding on this ride-on spreader sprayer here and putting out granular lime on the lawn. So I go knock out the first little office building, and that was great. And then the second stop is a big church that I take care of. It's one of the mowing guys that I know. His company takes care of all the maintenance, and he subs out the spraying to me. So typically I go to this early in the morning or on Saturday. Well, I pull up, not expecting anybody to be there, and guess what I see? Youth cheerleading in the parking lot. And I pull up and I'm like, who is over there? And it looks like about 8-year-old girls out there practicing their cheerleading for some kind of competition. But I look at it and I'm like, you know what? They're not really in the grass, they're out in the parking lot area. I'm just going for it. I'm not letting these 8-year-old girls stop me from getting my work done. But I was also trying to be respectful of them, so I rode on the machine on the larger areas. When I got over there close to them, it was these little islands in the parking lot, and so I just used a little chest-mounted spreader to do that. Well, as I'm working, I see a guy, I'm riding on the machine, and a guy comes walking over there toward me in my direction. And it's a big parking lot, it seems like he's kind of looking at me. I'm riding on the machine trying to work, so I look back, I'm like, is he trying to get my attention? Does he want me to come over there? I thought, well, let me just keep going. So I had a little bit of section to do. I look back over there and he's like standing right beside my truck. And I think, okay, he probably wants to talk to me. And this story's gonna get to pricing. He asked me something like, do I work around here? I was like, yeah. And so he tells me, he says, look, my granddaughter is one of the cheerleaders over here. He said, I live out of town, but I have a house that I come stay in. He basically owns multiple houses. So he has an extra house in our community, and he told me what neighborhood it's in. It's probably a $300,000 house, maybe more, that he just uses to come visit his grandkids. Fine with me, that sounds great. He's like, do you want to give me a price on doing my lawn? He says, I have a company. Oh, he started off the conversation, asked me like what I was putting out. You putting out a pre-emergent, or what you doing? I sort of explained to him what I was doing and a little bit, and then he says, well, would you want to, are you familiar with such and such neighborhood? I said, yeah, I'm familiar with it. I told him I live here in this community, and it's one of my absolute target neighborhoods, just to be honest with you. Little bitty houses, really close to my house. I've already got a pretty strong presence in that neighborhood. I would love another house in that neighborhood. And I didn't tell him that, but I'm like, yeah, I'm familiar with that neighborhood. So he says, well, I'm using such and such company. Well, such and such company is a big company that honestly doesn't really work much in our area. And he says, they're charging me too much. He's like, I'm paying almost as much for that little bitty yard as I do for my primary house I live in. And he's correct. This neighborhood's got little bitty yards. I mean, little yards. And so I tell him, I said, well, I'd love to take a look at it. When I get done doing this church, I'll head over there and look at your yard. You want to give me your address? I said, I'm familiar with that neighborhood. It's most likely, from little bitty yards, it's going to be $30-something. Now, let me stop the video right here and say, I realize some of you won't even stop the truck for less than $50. You have these hard minimums. I don't blame you for that if it's in a certain area that demands that. But for me, in these neighborhoods where there's all these little bitty houses, I'll take the $36, $38, $42, $45 yards all day long, because I can probably do 6 of these yards in 1 hour. Okay, so 6 times 38 or 36 or whatever. I mean, that's not bad for 1 hour, and very little product to be used because the yards are so little. So if you've got a bunch of them in the same neighborhood, it's actually one of the most profitable things I can do for my business. But if you have a hard minimum and your yards are a little more spaced out or larger, then that's fine. I'm not telling you you're right or wrong. I will say, if you're watching this, I do have a new product, lawncarelife.com. It's the dynamic pricing chart. So if you want a pricing chart for weed control and fertilization, I've got a great resource for you at lawncarelife.com called the dynamic pricing charts. I'll put a link in the description. All right, back to the story. Well, as I'm talking to him, I'm working, and I'm like, hey, you want to text me your address? I go by and look at it, and he's fumbling around on his phone. He's actually looking for a business card. You know, I'm like, oh, I don't need a business card. So I pull out my phone. I said, I tell you what, let me just text you. What's your phone number? He gives me his phone number. I type it in, and I go to send him a text, and of course it pulls up any record of past texts. Now, I don't recognize the person, but as I look at it, guess what pulls up? A text message I had sent him previously. I don't know if it was this year, last year, 2 years ago, but it said on there, this is Jason with Alabama Lawn Pros, and the price for your yard is $37 per application. And so I look at it, I'm saying, hey, I've already given you a quote. It's $37 per application. Because he had told me, he said, I'm paying like $37, $38 with the other company. And so I tell him it's $37 per application. He kind of looks at me and he's like, that's basically what I'm paying now, you know. So then I go to my next line that I can use sometimes to get somebody who's price conscious. I say, well, you know what? A lot of the companies are doing 8 and 9 treatments. I'm doing 7 applications. So, you know, if 7 times 37 is probably cheaper than if you're doing 8 applications at 38, you know, because he's like, that's not really much savings. But the fact that he's shopping around, I mean, to me, it's either like he thinks he's paying too much or he's not happy with service. Well, when I told him that, he didn't seem impressed. And he says, well, you know what, I'm kind of happy with who I'm using. I think I'll stay with him. At this point, I did something that I almost never do. And I told him, I said, well, I will do it for $35, you know, and he didn't seem impressed with that either. And so the conversation was basically over at that point, and he just thanked me for working at the church and doing the lawn care there. I don't know if he goes to church there when he's in town or what, I'm not sure. All right, so what's the important takeaways from a story like this? Well, I think there's a couple things. One, somebody like that has a spare house they use just to come visit their grandchildren in a nice house in a nice neighborhood. I'm familiar with their neighborhood. There's no non-nice houses in this neighborhood. Then I saw the truck he was driving, very nice truck. Likely has plenty of money, okay? Now, to me, it's not necessarily about whether, if I think they've got a lot of money, let me see if I can charge them more. If I think they're poor, let me charge them less. You know, the price is the price. I use a pricing chart, and very rarely will I come off $2 like I try to do with them. I just did that in that situation because I was already in the neighborhood established, and I thought, you know, that it's gonna be a tiny little yard. But even that was not enough, and I probably, looking back, shouldn't have even offered that. I don't know his income status, but I'm thinking he's probably doing okay. For some customers that have plenty of money, I've found that some are very generous, regularly give me tips, not worried about if you go up on them a few dollars, they're like, oh, I totally understand, that makes sense. And others, I think it's somewhat of a game to them, and I'm not saying that they're right or wrong, but I think they always are trying to get the absolute best value. I mean, he's paying $38 and he's out price shopping, you know, so that lets you know something. And let's say I would have locked him in at $37, and next year my fertilizer goes up a lot and I try to increase his price by literally $1, which I've done to something like it's next year it's going to be $38 instead of $37. He might have canceled on me, or he might have been shopping around. I mean, he's already approached me 2 times, and he says he's not even dissatisfied with the service he's got. He's approached me twice, and he's paying $38 per application. Or, you know, he said 38, 39, I don't know. But the fact that he's price shopping and he's under $40 and he's relatively happy with him, that lets you know that, like, listen, this is not the kind of person that understands small business. I can almost guarantee you he's never owned a business. I mean, I don't know that, but I'll say for me personally, since I've owned a small business, I find that I'm a little less hard on trying to negotiate or unwilling to pay for other businesses. I don't personally think I'm that cheap of a person, but my theory is you can't spend what you don't have. So if you don't have the money, you might need to try to find a decent deal. To give you an example, I would say even like when you eat out at a restaurant, how generous are you going to be to your server? Now the server's terrible. I'm not going to be generous. That's not just hand out money just because they showed up that day and get a terrible job. But to give you an example, I went to eat last night, and the lady serving our tables looked like she was probably in her 50s, out there working on a Friday night and working hard, and did a great job with enthusiasm. And I left her a slightly more generous tip than I might normally do that. And I find that if they're doing a great job, they're out there working, they're trying hard, then I'm not gonna squeeze them over a dollar or two, okay? And just try to make sure that it's always in my favor. And you're gonna learn that with customers. I mean, there's some of them that understand you're running a business and you need to make money to continue the business. And then there's others that think, if you get one extra dollar out of me, they basically, they don't want you to quit on them. They don't want anything less than perfect. And they want your business to just barely make it enough where you don't go out of business. But they definitely don't want you like pulling up in some nice new truck because you're actually making money. You know, I mean, oh, heaven forbid that you actually do well with your business, because that would mean that you might have got one extra dollar out of them that instead of saving money with them, you kept it and put it in your pocket, you know, which would be terrible. The fact that you're out there working all the time and actually made money and not just on life support. I'm not saying by any means this person is a bad person. I don't know him from anything. He may be the most generous guy ever, but I have a feeling that with my interaction, he's price shopping with a price under $40 with a service he says he's basically happy with. And so that's not the kind of person that's probably gonna stick with you long term. And you gotta understand, in my opinion, in my observation, I should say, this is the minority. Most people are not like this. It's okay to go up on prices when you need to. Let's be honest. A $60 lawn 6 years ago is not a $60 lawn today. Why? Inflation, everything's going up. Your $60 doesn't go to the grocery store and buy the same thing it did 6 years ago. So if you're charging the same, you're actually working for less. I mean, that's pretty, you don't need a PhD in economics to figure that out. So several lessons to take from this video. You figure out your pricing based on your business. And if you want to do something generous to somebody, go ahead. That's fine, it's actually great. But if you need to charge somebody a fair price, it's okay. Don't worry about it. If they're not agreeing with it, then they can go find somebody else. Secondly, I would say almost never negotiate on your prices. I'm actually, the more I do this video, the madder I get that I even offered him $35. I should have, when I said 37 and he kind of frowned on it, I should have said, well, now it's 39. I don't know why, I'm just going up on you, you know. And that may be a little bit arrogant saying that, but point being, you decide what the price needs to be, and this is my neighborhood. You know, I can actually give a really competitive price in that neighborhood because I'm already established in that neighborhood. It's so close to where I work, and I want to get more and more houses in that neighborhood. But at the same time, I'm not out there operating some nonprofit business. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a 501c3. I'm trying to make money. And so I need more than just some bare bones minimum to go do his yard so that he can feel great about himself that he won over another contractor. It's not about that. I'm holding my ground. I'm not trying to gouge somebody, and this goes the other way. You know, you can't say, well, he's rich, so I got extra $5 out of him. You know, I don't try to do that either. It's just like, listen, the fair price is the fair price. Here's the price. Take it or leave it. If they leave it, move on and go find the other people in town that were willing to pay a fair price and actually support you in your business and celebrate as your business grows. I have had customers do that. They actually genuinely get excited to see that your business is going well. Again, a small minority are mad that you kept one more dollar in your pocket that could have been kept in their pocket. Jason Creel, let me know what you learned from the video. Leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't done so. Also, if you want to get in weed control and fertilization, there's a live training day November 29th. I'm pretty excited about near Birmingham, Alabama. 1 day hands-on training. We're not sitting around listening to people talk. We're getting out there, action-packed day of riding equipment, spraying, calibrating, doing the hands-on stuff for those that are ready to get serious about weed control and fertilization. And if you've already bought the Weed Control and Fertilization Academy from lawncarelife.com, then you can come to this training day for free. Or if you go buy that, then you get free admission to the training day. Or you can just buy a ticket to the training day. The link is in the description. Give me a thumbs up if you liked the video. Let me hear from you in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one.